Ahmad Rashad was not only a notable broadcaster, he was a hell of a football player, played for a decade in the NFL, was a Pro Bowl level wide receiver for 4 of those years, and he was drafted. He played at Oregon before they were Oregon. Wide receivers out of Oregon did not go number 4 in the first round until Ahmad Rashad. All you guys know the snazzy uniform Oregon, the Phil Knight Oregon. He was great before that at Oregon. And he is now the NBA ambassador for the commissioner. He did that show for years. A lot of us watched NBA Inside Stuff. And when I watched him on NBC, he was Jordan's guy. And he took some heat for that, but in the end, he gave me information I didn't get anywhere else, and I loved it. And Ahmad is joining us. First of all, thank you. You're a busy guy, and I appreciate you coming on my show.
Oh, Colin, how you doing, man? Very nice to be here. Thanks for having me on. And I'm not that busy right now.
So, what is your earliest memory of Michael Jordan, seeing him or meeting him?
It goes back. The first time I saw Michael Jordan and started to follow him, John McEnroe was a huge fan. Huge fan. I was living in New York, and John is the one that turned me on to him. It's like, hey, you got to see this guy from North Carolina. He's absolutely great. Unbelievable. You got to see him. So from that point on, that was like in 1983, 82, 83, somewhere around there. From then on, we started watching him all the time, and John and I would watch. We'd both be watching, from either at home or together, watching Michael do his thing. And that's how I first sort of knew, all about him and how great of a player that he was. And then obviously the 84 Olympics was another time that I saw him again. And I'd never met him until NBC got basketball. They got basketball, I believe, in 1989 or 1990.
Yeah.
One or the other. And in the summertime, Magic Johnson used to have this game called A Midsummer Night's Dream. And it was back in the day when all the players, all the stars from around the league would come out to L.A. and they would play in an all-star game. And it was an all-star game which was pretty competitive. Guys were, It was about reputations and about who was this and who was that. And so for NBC to sort of kick off their basketball thing, we showed that on television. We went out there to do that. It was our new team, and it was the first time I had sort of been at a game like this as a reporter. And Michael and I met then, and we just sort of hit it off. We exchanged numbers, and from that day forward, we talked probably every week, just about every kind of thing. We just became really, really good friends. And as it so happened, I ended up doing basketball on NBC in a game of the week. And, every game of the week seemed to be the Chicago Bulls. and my job was to interview the star of the game, and the star of the game was always Michael.
Ahmad, it is, again, I'm old enough to, I've been doing this long enough that I watched the whole Michael thing. I lived through it. But I only saw a half a dozen times, having covered him live or in a game, the stardom. Women swooned, the fashion industry, Wall Street, middle America. Can you take me back to a moment where, and you've been around athletes your whole life, that you were with Michael in a semi-private situation, and it really hit you? I'm with Muhammad Ali. I'm with Pele. I'm with the biggest star in the world, period. May not even be sports.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever felt, I don't think I ever felt that. I knew, you sort of knew what it was, but from the inside of it, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
He's just Michael, who happens to play basketball. And I was just Ahmad, who happened to play football. So it wasn't like, wow, but there were certain things that would certainly throw you back. I mean, the fact to watch, you couldn't go anywhere. Like, we never go to a store, or we never go to a mall. You couldn't go, those things, or people would just follow you forever. I think the one thing I remember is one time when we were in Paris, is that we had a car, and we were going to get some cigars at a cigar store, and we must have had, 10, 12 police cars in the front and in the back. And everywhere we went, the guy would drive up on the sidewalk so that when we got out of the van, it was like 2 steps to the door of the building where we're going in. And then by the time we come out, there was hundreds of people surrounding everywhere. That was the biggest one. But there were scenes like that, throughout the NBA here. I remember in Miami, coming out of a hotel and just having people as far as you could see them. So it was not only was he like the greatest player, but their team was the greatest team. There was a lot going on with that team. And I used to sort of say, it was like the Beatles. But then I'd have people go, who's the Beatles? So it's like, at the end of that, I can't even explain it. Like, man, these guys are like the Beatles. Like, well, who's the Beatles?
It's funny. I know Kobe. When I watch Kobe, he was doing he was clearly inspired by Michael.
Yes.
Who inspired Michael? Was it like a David Thompson, I remember, or did he ever talk to that kind of stuff about you?
Yeah. David Thompson was one, and the other one, geez, I can't remember his name, played for Denver. Played for before David Thompson. There was two guys that if I can think of their names, and you watch the way Michael played, you realize that is where his whole thing came from. I don't know. If I think of it, I'll call you back.
Yeah. No,
But one of them was David Thompson.
Yeah.
One was David Thompson, and the other guy was shoot.
Well, it wasn't Alex English because he didn't jump much, so I doubt it was Alex.
Not Alex English. No.
Who's supposed to be a great guy, but was not a very vertical player. Not
at all.
Ahmad Rashad is joining us. Listen, a lot of people speculate that Michael was willing to do this because, LeBron's getting all this love, and, Michael's got a massive shoe brand, and he doesn't want that brand dinged at all, and it's still the biggest selling shoe in basketball by far. Do you buy the reports that Michael kind of watched LeBron win, beat the Warriors, and thought, you know what, I'm going to give people a little, let's give him a little bit of my life again. I wouldn't fault him for it, but do you buy those reports?
Colin, not at all. Not even that's the furthest thing from his mind. His whole attitude about this whole thing is, you know what? I did what I did, and there it is. You can decide whatever you want where that stands. I don't think he has any there's no competitive feeling in him about, who was better, or there's no competition between him and LeBron. None whatsoever. I mean, you can't draw him into any sort of conversation like that. The way he comes back and says, you know what, you can't compare errors. Is that there's no way that you can compare errors, and you can't. And he said, plus, we're never going to play one-on-one. So it's just a sports conversation about, one person saying this guy was the greatest, the other person saying that guy was the greatest. But that's what sports is all about. Remember back in the day when you'd go and you have your buddies, and you'd have your favorite player, and he'd have his favorite player, and you have these wonderful arguments about who's the best and who's not the best. But Michael, once he finished playing, that whole basketball thing is gone. I don't think that that conversation would never even happen. If it was like, whoa, somebody's gaining on one, he's getting too much thing, let me put this thing out. I think that there was enough time, even when he decided to let the NBA follow him during that last year. There was no plan of ever letting this tape out. It was just something he was going to be able to have. And you could do whatever you want with it.
Yeah.
And enough time went by, I guess, that he just kind of went, let's do it and see what it is, and that's all. So you're going to just see it. But it wasn't in any sort of competitive way of, let me show you who I was. His whole thing is like, hey, you saw who I was, and that's what I was, and this is what I am now. So, no, there's no competition on that. I don't think there's any looking back and, trying to prove who's better than who and any of that kind of stuff. I think that's just for a bar conversation that people can say things like that. But I can say for a fact that that's not the reason why he let that tape out.
Ahmad Rashad joining us, friends of Michael, the former Pro Bowl wide receiver, a very notable 10-year career, also now NBA ambassador for the commissioner, Adam Silver. I was struck when you watch Michael. I think sometimes we forget how hard the road was. The fights with his brother, his relationship with his dad, cut in high school, the injury broke his foot, getting knocked to the ground, having to deal with multiple coaches. I understand the reservoir of not animosity, but the chip on the shoulder. When you first met him, had he eclipsed that, or was he still going through that sort of, I'm going to prove the world they don't want to mess with me? Who was the Jordan you met?
That one. And I think he's been that one for quite some time. And I think that's something that cannot be coached. And he's not the only person that, I think if you talk to Magic Johnson or Larry Bird or Kareem or Dennis Rodman for that matter, and talk about there was always a place where they could go to be somebody. You know, whatever that was going on in your life and whatever was going the other way, there was a basketball court to go to prove who you were. Now, some guys, you know, had that competitive spirit that they were going to go, I'm going to show you I'm the best, you know, there is. Other guys, it's like, I'm the best today, you know, but great ones are, I'm the best all the time. You know, there's something that you just can't teach. It's Michael had that, put your foot on their throat. Kobe had that, put your foot on their throat. So there were a lot of guys that were just different. They weren't just great, but they also had that killer instinct.
Yeah.
You know, that they were competitive about everything. And Michael has been competitive about everything. He hates to lose to me in golf, probably as much as he hates losing at anything. So it's just the way, it's people's makeup, you know, and I guess you could have it at all single levels. There's probably a lot of guys that hate to lose, but they do anyway. And then there's certain guys that hate to lose and they very seldom do lose.
You know, I found
there's a commitment there.
Yeah, I found Michael incredibly likable last night. I loved when he was laughing when his mom was reading the letter, and it was really a joyful laugh. I laughed when he was told that the Bulls, when he joined the team, were called the Traveling Cocaine Circus, and he just belly laughed. You get to see Michael. I get the intense Michael. I get the regal Michael. But he really was easy to laugh. I found that such a likable quality, and that's probably the Michael you see.
Wasn't that great, Colin, to be able to see that?
Yes.
I mean, what this film does, it lets you see Michael. That's him. That's him. And before that, you never saw that. He never let you see that.
Yep.
He let you see, he was 2-3 feet away from you. You never got to get inside that. I mean, just anybody out there. But for this, and I think that he's also feeling like this is the first time that people, fans everywhere, are like a fly on the wall to see him as he really is. And that's a little uncomfortable.
Right.
But it is what it is. And I think that's the beauty in this documentary is you get to see the sacrifices. You get to see the guy reacting like a normal person. Before, you never saw that.
Yeah.
He didn't never let you see that.
Yeah.
Now it's like, hey, man, I'm happy in my life. I've done whatever I've tried to do. I'm moving forward with everything else I'm doing. So it's kind of fun to look back at this and see that, you know what, I was like everybody else.
Yeah.
But I was just committed to try to be in the best I could possibly be. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the most committed person I've ever seen. We would, here's an example. We would, after every game during the finals, there was a bunch of us that would sort of hang out. It was like Howard White, Clint Buckner, and myself and Michael. We'd get a room, we'd go smoke cigars and talk about the game from the minute it started to it ended. And we'd be up there talking and this happening, that happening, what about this and all that, till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, Michael was in the gym.
Yeah.
Never missing.
That's amazing. Real pleasure for me, Ahmad. I just found Michael so likable, and it was so nice to see him laugh. And I just can't wait to watch the remaining 8 episodes. Ahmad, thanks for coming on our show today. I appreciate it, man.
You are very, very welcome. And you know I'm from Tacoma, and you're from Seattle, so we're homeboys.
Oh, where'd you go to high school in Tacoma? Stadium?
Mount Tahoma.
You went to Mount Tahoma.
Yeah, and did you go to Rainier?
No, I went to a very small school on the coast of Washington in a small town that's largely overlooked even on maps. So you went to Mount Tahoma is a real football school. They had some real good teams when I was a kid growing up.
Tell me which was in the city?
Westport, Washington, by Aberdeen.
I know where Westport is. I ran track meets in Westport before.
And I bet you won them. I bet you did. All right. Thanks, man.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.